Joining me on set is CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist Leslie Sanchez. Okay, Leslie, earlier you actually spoke with people close to Pence. What are they saying about him, and what more do we know?
Sure. One of the questions I had for them is, what do we not know about Governor Pence that's not widely reported? And what's an interesting feedback is they think that, one, they talk to the fact that they consider him in the model of a Reagan Republican. They said he is very much that gifted communicator, good at moving ideas, but also he has a very kind of pragmatic approach to how he runs government. They talk about they work on weekends. You'll get calls on the staff, and in late evenings. They run like a business, an entrepreneurial business, which they think is so different when you think about government role. But they want to invigorate an economy in Indiana that can really take on, be global and look to the future. They mention often that Mike Pence was a radio talk show host on conservative radio, and if you think about the bloodline into social conservatives, it is in talk radio. It has been. I think the rise of Rush Limbaugh and all of those things in terms of moving voters. It's a big win, certainly for social conservatives, but talk radio, because they now feel that they have one of their own who really stands as the standard bearer for the Republican, at least the conservative movement.
This is a live shot we're looking at outside of Governor Pence's home in Indianapolis. We should mention, from what our reporting is, that he hasn't actually made the call. Donald Trump hasn't made the call to Pence yet, so all this is running around in the media, but he is apparently expected to pick Pence. So much buzz in the media over who he would pick. Governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, was among them. Newt Gingrich also. What were their liabilities?
Truly, if you're talking to a lot of the delegates who were now being questioned as to whether or not they would stand with Trump, a lot of them felt that Governor Christie was too liberal, and they were going to walk, and they were going to look at this kind of never Trump movement if he did pick somebody like Governor Christie. So the liability was extremely high. His risk exposure, you would say, from business terms, was too high. And if you look at Speaker Gingrich, there's a lot of positives in terms of knowing how to navigate and run the trains on Capitol Hill, but he's also the first speaker to face a House ethics violation, a punishment, and a $300,000 fine. So he did have that pall of the ethics violations when he was speaker. A lot of people don't think about that, but the Democrats never forgot. They used him as his #1 fundraising mechanism in the 90s and all the way to the 2000s. I don't think anybody wanted to see a repeat of that.
Do you think this VP pick changes anything for Donald Trump when it comes to the numbers?
Not in terms of anything more than getting through a solid convention of reuniting the party, making people stick with, in terms of the bound delegates, and showing that he can put together a conservative ticket that can move Republican solutions forward. I think that's very much there. It's a sign of relief. I think, certainly a sigh of relief for many in the Republican establishment, because he's very much favored. Speaker Ryan speaks very highly of him. But does it get you independent voters? Not really. Does it get you more of the swing voters, people on the fence? Not really. Does it add diversity to the Republican Party? Not really. All the things we've worked for the last 20 years are on the sidelines right now, and it's a new game in town.
Do you think it changes the course for Republicans like John McCain, Lindsey Graham, who've already said we're not going to the convention?
No, I think they've already made up their mind that they're going to let this kind of Trump phenomenon move forward. But if you think about a year ago we were talking about Governor Christie as kind of this unabashed kind of uniter of Republicans and Democrats, a different style, sharp elbows, but would he fundamentally be a leader? We were talking about New York Governor Susana Martinez as somebody who, to be a VP pick, really kind of talk about the new face of the Republican Party, what she's done in the Southwest, because the growth of America is happening in the mountainous West, and something that was more reflective of that. Where were the women in this? I think it's going to come down to who are the speakers of the convention, what is his vision, can it be inclusive, and is this really a party that looks to the future as opposed to what some would say harkens to the past.
And he said in the past that putting a woman as a VP pick would be possibly pandering and something that he's not necessarily going to do.
No, not to defend Donald Trump in that sense, but he did step back from that and kind of walk away from that point. The point is, when we push so hard on inclusion and diversity, especially at this time in our country, because it's reflective of America. It's just including everybody on the on-ramp to American success. It's not picking one group or favoring one over the other. It's really trying to just be inclusive, because it's a diversity of thought. And that's what I think a lot of us are going to look for. What's the diversity of thought as they look for solutions that speak to some of the biggest challenges America faces?
So if you're in the Hillary Clinton camp today and you see this VP pick, Does this make you recalibrate your VP pick?
No, I think we're going to go back to an interesting phenomenon that happened to Governor Pence when he had a culture war when he signed the religious liberty bill that looked, if you remember, a lot of businesses, it was a big national story. He signed a bill that 19 other states signed, but basically it was allowing for religious exclusion for small businesses, and the LGBT community came back, and a lot of businesses came back and felt that it was not good and inclusive. That was not what Governor Pence really was moving for. He actually walked back on some of that legislation, which upset conservatives. So I think you're going to hear talk of this culture war again. I think it'll be very small. It's not going to have a larger impact, but that's going to be the distinction line they draw.
You'll be at the Republican convention next week. You're heading out this weekend. Tell me what you're going to be looking for and watching and wanting to hear.
Definitely, what is the tone of the convention, how inclusive it is, and are we talking about solutions that unite people? Yes, make America first, but what does that translate into? Let's look at the national security implications. Let's look at the economic implications. And again, one of the things that's really been telling for the Republican Party and the Democrats for that matter, the conventions traditionally are when you highlight kind of the up-and-comers of the party, people that are really going to be that backbench that you're building for future leadership, because it's always about cultivation of whose ideas do you stand for. Barack Obama, people think about that in 2004, which is really a big pronounced platform to get him to run to the national ticket. Marco Rubio has been that. Certainly many people on the right. None of these individuals are going to be present in the same kind of vein, and I don't know that you have anybody really using this as a launching pad for the next 4 to 8 years. That's what I think.
So there's no buzz like there was Bill Clinton at one point before he was anywhere, when he was governor of Arkansas.
Sure.
There's no person in the Republican Party you feel that.
Well, Rita, you bring up the biggest point, because the individuals who you would say, the Susanna Martinez, I think good. You're hearing Mary Fallon, for example, from Oklahoma, very popular first female governor of that state. Looks like she's likely to be there. I think there's some really strong Republican leaders that will be there, but where is Nikki Haley? Where are some of these others? You know, regardless of their ethnicity and gender, where are these future leaders? Are we hearing from them? Are we setting a platform, or is it just the Trump show? I think that's what we want to know.
Okay, Leslie Sanchez, we look forward to hearing from you, especially throughout the next week. Thank you, Leslie.